For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Climate justice actions continue in New York as world leaders convene for the United Nations General Assembly and a UN climate summit. More than 100 people were arrested protesting outside the Federal Reserve Bank Monday, demanding it stop funding fossil fuels that are driving global warming and climate chaos. At the United Nations, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres gave a dire warning this morning about the state of the world and urged wealthy nations to phase out fossil fuel investments.
G20 countries are responsible for 80% of greenhouse emissions. They must lead. They must break their addiction to fossil fuels, stop new coal. Indeed, the International Energy Agency's findings that new oil and gas licensing by them is incompatible with keeping the 1.5-degree limit alive. To stand a fighting chance of limiting global temperature rise, we must phase out coal, oil and gas in a fair and equitable way and massively boost renewables.
He's also convened a climate ambition summit this week. U.S. President Joe Biden is scheduled to address the United Nations General Assembly today. He's expected to make the case for continued financial support for Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is also set to address the UN in New York as well. Biden will not be attending the UN Climate Ambition Summit. U.S. Climate Envoy John Kerry will attend Wednesday. Officials are warning a disease outbreak in Libya's northeast where historic floods have killed thousands and could create a second devastating crisis as adults and children fall ill from contaminated water. Max Pringle reports.
The United Nations support mission in Libya said in a statement it was particularly concerned about water contamination and the lack of sanitation after Mediterranean storm Daniel collapsed 2 dams and sent a wall of water gushing through the eastern city of Derna last week, killing at least 11,000. Georgette Gagnon is United Nations humanitarian coordinator for Libya.
We're very concerned about the health impact and the potential spread of waterborne diseases as water sources and sewer networks have been severely damaged. We're also concerned that floodwaters have shifted landmines and unexploded remnants of war, leaving displaced people at risk of injury and death.
9 UN agencies are in the country responding to the disaster and are working to prevent diseases from taking hold and creating another crisis in the devastated country. The UN mission in Libya said the country is receiving 28 tons of medical supplies from the World Health Organization. About 40,000 people have been displaced across northeast Libya, including 30,000 in Derna. I'm Max Pringle.
California has become the largest economy in the world to sue oil companies to hold them liable for catastrophic climate change. Christopher Martinez reports.
The case is called People of the State of California versus Exxon, and it accuses 5 big oil and gas companies of decades of lies about climate change and billions of dollars of damage to the state of California.
Perhaps there's never been anything more consequential than this lawsuit that we're putting forward.
Newsom spoke about the lawsuit at the United Nations Climate Week New York City event over the weekend.
Climate change, climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis.
Attorney General Rob Bonta filed the lawsuit Friday, naming as defendants ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and BP, along with the trade group American Petroleum Institute. The lawsuit claims California has suffered from the actions of the fossil fuel companies in the form of extreme heat, drought, wildfire, flooding, sea level rise, ecosystem disruption, and more. It raises charges like public nuisance, pollution, and disruption of natural resources, and untrue or misleading advertising. Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is pushing a short-term spending measure to keep the government open for 30 more days as a shutdown nears at the end of the month. McCarthy's warning he'll keep House lawmakers in Washington into the weekend if necessary to pass the stopgap funding measure. Alex Gonzalez reports.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says a House GOP short-term spending plan reads like a hard-right screed. It would keep the government open an extra month with defense and veterans affairs at current levels, but would cut all other discretionary spending by 8%.
Time is short to finish the job. If both sides embrace bipartisanship, a shutdown will be avoided. If the hard right is given a license to run the show, A shutdown is almost inevitable.
Plan doesn't boost disaster relief or Ukraine aid, which Schumer calls an insult to Ukraine and a gift to Putin, days before Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is to visit Capitol Hill. I'm Alex Gonzalez for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.